Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always during this festive season is Tara.
Greetings, citizens. Ho, ho, ho.
This is our science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched the movie, we talk about it, and in this episode we are covering a Patreon vote winner every month on patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Our $5 and up patrons get to vote on the regular Patreon vote, Atomic Cinema Experiment vote, and I'm specifying because there's another vote at the $10 tier now, which is different. But this vote, I don't know what the theme was, but the winner was Tremors. Was it 90s?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't 90s. I don't know, maybe it was 90s.
Maybe it was 90s.
No, we have a different 90s vote that just won.
Yeah, 90s vote was after. Yeah, I don't know what the vote for this was, but it was Tremors that won.
Maybe it was like, was this all stuff from the vault or whatever?
Oh, I think it was. I think you're right. It was all stuff from the reactor.
The reactor.
As our version of the crypt,
right.
Which is also a Patreon thing. Patreon submitted movies, which occasionally we'll put in the voting options. So, so Tremors, pretty well known movie. It's pretty mainstream, but I mean, it's one of these weird things though, where it's now 30 years old, and I feel like we're maybe of an age group that don't realize that there's now teenagers who have never heard of Tremors because it's way before their time, and I'm like, oh no, we're old.
What a shame.
I mean, for a start, like I saw Kevin Bacon in a movie that came out this year, and the dude's aged quite a bit since Tremors. Because when I popped this on and he showed up, I was like, oh man, he looks so young.
Yeah,
he's a old man
smooth
now. Yeah. So it's a monster movie. You know, we've done a lot of monster movies on this. We did Mothra way back when, early on.
Yeah, we did.
Very different type of monster movie, but this is underground, tentacle-esque monsters. They're called graboids as they're named throughout the film, and it's a small desert town, like population of about 12, and the monsters come and it turns into a game of lava where they can't be on the ground because that's where the Tremors can get them, or sorry, the graboids can get them.
I think they're called Tremors now.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, that's not why the movie's called Tremors. It's called Tremors because the vibrations of sound is like a very key plot element. Both in that's what the what the graboids hear, but also what like we see on like, you know, like the seismograph and whatnot when they're coming. So that's what it is. But anyway, that's the premise. You got Kevin Bacon playing himself as the leader of this movie. It's actually kind of a trio with a partnership with him and Fred Ward, who plays the other main character, and it's their friendship, and then eventually there's the leading lady who becomes kind of the third pillar of the movie. What's notable about this is that I hadn't seen this in a while, but I know that the 6 or 7 sequels that exist all star the guy with the mustache because they couldn't get the real stars back, so he became kind of the star of the franchise after this.
Fred Ward didn't come back either?
Well, maybe he came back for some, like maybe the second one, but he didn't. Like, I definitely know that because Tremors 6, I think, was the mustache guy, and like Jamie Kennedy was. I remember the poster a few years ago when that was coming out. I never saw it, obviously, but that was the poster.
I haven't seen anything past the first one.
Nor have
and
I.
If this is the start of a new franchise, I think it's going to be bonus worthy for the sequel.
Yeah, I feel like the sequels to this are bonus worthy, and don't worry, that's just Tara's dog coughing up something.
Yeah.
Heaving?
She's good now, I think.
Cool.
she's an old lady.
Oh. So that's the basic gist of it. I mean, we'd obviously both seen this before. It's just one of those staples of TV growing up throughout the 90s, as we both did. So I'll make it very simple. Tara, what did you think of Tremors?
I like it. It's just a really fun movie.
It's a B movie. It's a B monster movie with likable characters and it's fun. So, and you know, what I said earlier when I said it's a game of lava, that's why this movie's good. Is they took the game of lava, and if for some reason as a kid you never played lava,
the floor is lava.
Yeah, so you have to stay off the floor. That's what this movie is. It is I wouldn't say big budget necessarily, but you know, a reasonable budgeted Hollywood movie game of lava, and as that, it works.
I think the monster design is really cool.
Yeah, not bad.
Why are there only 4 of them? I don't know. I mean, there are more sequels, so I guess we'll find out. But I think the monster designs are really cool. Like they're these weird underground worm things, and they've got worm-like tentacles in their mouth that grab onto things. Like they're a cool design. They got beaks. They explain how they can go through the rocks, but not like solid rock, but soil. They've got it's a cool creature design.
There's rules, is what Tara's saying. There's rules as to where they can go and how they navigate, and
Yeah,
much like any good movie with a monster or a supernatural element or anything, the rules mean that the characters can then use those rules to mechanically decide plans and do things. And for the most part, this follows its own rules, and therefore you enjoy when the characters think of a new exploit, essentially,
Right.
because you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course they can do that, or that's
Right.
how you would combat this.
Yeah, it's just a blast, and I think the strongest point of the film is our two leads and their dialogue between each other.
Chemistry.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, their chemistry is great. Every time Kevin Bacon swears, I love this movie even more. Like, he's so good. He's so good at yelling out curse words.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, it does a decent enough job at introducing the townsfolk, where there is a couple that are very clearly just there to be killed, but there's definitely a B layer of characters who are, like, they make a point of introducing them enough that it feels like we do have a whole group and population, and some of them will survive, and it doesn't just feel like we know who's going to live or die based on everything.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of The Blob from the 50s. It has
kinda,
like a very 50s monster movie style.
It very much is the 90s version of a 50s monster movie, and you know that's what it is. So
I guess it reminds me a little bit of the 80s Blob, but not as much.
it doesn't bask in the gore. It's not the body horror gory mess that the wonderful, may I add, 80s Blob movie is.
Check out our review.
but at the same time, it has way more bite than the 50s Blob does, though, because it's definitely a movie that, you know, isn't afraid to have characters die, and when they do die, it may not be a gory horror movie death, but they still, you know, people still are getting sucked into the ground, or they're being this or that, or that, you know, there is definitely a bit more. Part of it's just that they're not on a backlot either. They're in like a real desert location, and it's all real vistas and whatnot. I will say, what's funny watching it again is that it is obviously a lighthearted movie, and it is definitely meant to feel like a sort of fun B sci-fi movie. What's interesting about it is watching it is that the music especially really doesn't even try to make you take it seriously. The music's always kind of, you know, jovial here. It's like, no, it fits the characters and the tone that the characters have. That everything's very much about surviving the adventure, as opposed to, oh my god, we're all going to die. Even though technically speaking, there are points in the movie where they do have kind of a, oh my god, we're all doomed. Technically that's happening, but it never really feels that way, and that's not a complaint. I'm not saying that it's lacking something. I'm saying that it knows what it is, and it's going for a tone, and it's going for a feel, and it's consistent with that.
This movie is also NRA approved.
Yeah, I will
There's
say
a
this.
lot of guns.
I will say this: the couple, so the mustache guy,
And Reba McEntire.
yes, that's the wife. Notably, I've just noticed in the credits their last names are Gummer, not Gunner, but close, Gummer.
Gummer.
Mr. and Mrs. Gummer. But I did think it's not. I'm usually cool with, like, especially with older movies, like that were made a while ago. I'm usually good at turning my brain off and enjoying them without thinking about modern world politics or anything like that. I don't have a problem when I'm watching like Commando and Arnold like decimates an army on his own, you know, firing hundreds or if not thousands of rounds of ammunition. It's whatever. It's a movie. I'm okay with it. I will say this though: the modern world, and of course, you know, things from the last few years, and you know, my I guess developing opinions politically as I've gotten older and noticing things. I will say, despite the fact that the couple in this, the gun nuts, are fairly likable, there was part of me that when I saw their wall of guns, I sort of went,
I immediately hated them.
Yeah, I kind of don't like you two anymore. I kind of.
I probably was okay with it when I was a kid. I was like, all right, guns.
Yeah.
We can defeat the worms. But when I watched it this time, I was like, ugh, I know these people.
Yeah.
I hate them.
It's that thing where you go, oh, in real life, I hate you two. Like, I hate you two so much in real life.
And they definitely live in that area.
Yeah.
That like Bakersfield, Lancaster area.
They've got this wall of guns, and they end up one of the guns they've got is this giant rifle, which they refer to as the elephant gun. Which, if I didn't already dislike them, like they just called that the elephant gun. The fact that they have a gun they refer to as the elephant gun makes me not like you.
Yeah, and I was thinking because that's the type of gun you would use to murder an elephant, or because it's just a gigantic gun. But probably the first.
I think it's mostly the first, but I'll call him B. It never hurts.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah, and they've got like automatic rifles. They've got like why do you need like some of these things? This is too much.
I know. I mean, they're preppers, and they're prepping for zombie apocalypse, prepping for, I don't know.
Well, that's actually one of the ironic jokes is that they've got like tons of supplies. They've got like a shelter. They've got all these things. But the one thing they never counted on was something that attacked from underground, so their entire plan is went to shit. The entire thing is just, nope, you're screwed. But like you said, the chemistry between the two leads is the best thing in the movie. Some of the other characters are likable to varying degrees and interact, and there's some running jokes. You know, the fact that there's a girl in a pogo stick, which I'm going to confess, because it's been such a long time since a pogo stick's been a thing, that before he said it out loud, I was actually sitting for a second going, what do you call these things again? I forget what you call these things. I was like, oh, it's pogo stick, that's right.
Yeah. They got replaced by razor scooters.
They did.
And rollerblades. I had rollerblades. That's the thing I did.
Yeah. It's very of the time. I'm very much surprised that the teenager kid wasn't going to run on a skateboard as well, just to
There's too many rocks. Can't have wheels.
True. Maybe there's like a sort of like the 4-wheel drive version of a skateboard with big like sturdy tires that can withstand the rough landscape.
I was thinking like the teenager kid, like how much I hated him, and I understood why everybody else hated him. But at the same time, I was like, to be a teenager in a town of like 14 people where there's no one else your age, like you would be a little shit. Like, what the hell else are you going to do? He must be bored out of his mind all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is a big deal at the time because I cared about this in the 90s. I don't even think this town has cable. Never mind anything else for me to do. Like, he doesn't even have HBO to watch.
I'm on the kid's side, you know? Like, he shouldn't be there.
Yeah, where was his parents exactly? Like, did they ever specify who were his parents?
Was the trailer park guy his dad? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
The one living in the trailer?
I have no... Maybe. I have no idea. I mean, it does give you that sense that everyone knows each other, which we always like in these types of movies.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate. The love interest character, I mean, she's fine.
She's fine.
Yes, I think she's all right. Maybe the weakest... It's not even the romantic element, because it's honestly only ever played as kind of a running joke more than it is like an actual plot. Because the whole joke is just that Fred Ward's character keeps saying, hey, you should maybe ask her out, stop being a lonely prick. And Kevin Bacon's standards are too high. But every time he's talking to this woman, it cuts to like Fred Ward just sort of watching them with a smirk in his face. And like it was kind of funny, even though the actual romantic part of it was just kind of unbelievable, I guess. It didn't really, like, there was nothing between them that felt like
No, I mean, she was mostly a capable woman who figured things out, who had to explain things to the men. But there is a scene where she ends up in her underwear.
Yes.
But it's also a good scene, like, and it makes sense why.
It's a good scene, but part of you does think, couldn't have one of the men had to have done this scene? Like, there's no reason why this has to be the woman.
Yeah.
Because it's not like she's wearing a skirt or something, and that's why it's like easier for it to grab. No, it's like she's already wearing trousers. Like,
yeah.
Could have easily been one of the dudes, but yeah, whatever. It's not as, I mean, we're sort of poking at it and saying,
they don't really
hey,
focus on her when she has she has her pants off though. Like, there's no shots of her butt.
It's not that, it's not that gratuitous. It's just one of those things where, of course, it was the female character that had to have her trousers ripped off.
Yeah.
But although again, it leads to one of the moments where Kevin Bacon's like helping patch up her leg, and like Ward's sort of looking at them, and like, look at you, get her hands all over her legs. Look at that.
Not everyone can have the chemistry that Kevin Bacon and and Fred Ward have in this movie, though. It's overshadowed, so
That's true.
it's overshadowing the love interest.
Yeah, and Kevin Bacon, because Kevin Bacon's character arc in this movie is that he won't accept anything that isn't a blonde supermodel for a
Right.
girlfriend. And
Even
then
though
by the
there's
end,
like one girl in that comes by every like 6 months.
but he by the end of the film he's going to accept the curly haired woman, the scientist lady, as an acceptable mate.
The beautiful woman that is in his town. what a shock.
And we should mention Dee Wallace is in this movie, who's an old favourite. She pops up in all. I mean, most people know her as the mum from E.T., but she was in The Howling.
Yeah.
She's in a bunch of low budget stuff
She's
from the
Scream
80s.
Queen, huh?
She is a Scream Queen. She absolutely is. She's in Cujo, if I remember right.
I don't know. It's been a long time.
She's been in a
I've
bunch
seen
of
it,
stuff.
but I don't think I ever registered that they were the same actress.
Why am I having such a hard time finding her on this cast list? Is she not credited on IMDb? This is weird. What's up with this? Why wouldn't she
I
be
don't know.
credited?
That's happened before in movies we've watched where someone was uncredited. It happened recently.
Holy shit, the little girl was from Jurassic Park. That's her. It's a teenager from
Oh,
Jurassic
it's
Park.
Lex?
Yeah. Holy shit, I did not recognize her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see it now.
Look at her, but I was really clicking Dee Wallace to tell you some more of her bigger roles, but apparently she's not credited. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, there's also the Asian guy who owns the store. I believe that's the grandfather from Three Ninjas. Just a staple of my childhood right there.
I have seen that, yeah.
Yes. I mean, would you believe it? A movie that mashed and ripped off both Die Hard and Ninja Turtles and Home Alone all in one was something I liked as a kid.
Weird.
I know. Right? Who could have believed it? Critters, that's the other one I was thinking of with Dee Wallace. There you go. Shooting Critters. Yeah, what a legacy. So
Yeah, that's a lot of horror.
yeah, she popped up in a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think, in fact, I mean, I hate this movie, but they did give her kind of an honorary cameo. She was like one of the mothers in the Halloween remake. So I hate that movie, but like, you know, fair enough. I get it. Like, you have some legacy casting. Why not? Even though she was never associated with Halloween, but you know, whatever. Doesn't really matter.
She's a famous mother.
She is. She does. She plays a mum in like so many. If anything, she's actually maybe bordering on a little old in this to be the mother she is, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but her kid is like 10, and she's like clearly in her 50s in this movie, and that's not impossible. I'm not saying it's like completely, but it's the sort of thing. The point I'm making though is that she's been playing a mother at this point for like 15 years. So she's still playing a mother of young children. She's like, she should have graduated to having teenagers as kids, but she's still got young little kids. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, women can have children later.
I mean, I know they can. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's just unusual.
I'm saying she was stuck in a sort of role for a long time. In fact, hell, I just mentioned the Halloween remake. She didn't have teenagers as children until 2007, which was another 17 years.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this movie.
What?
Where she seemed a little old to be a mother. I'm like, I don't think she seemed that old, but...
No, I am talking about this movie. I'm saying that she didn't get to be a mother of teenagers until 17 years later.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not saying she looks super old. I'm saying she looks a little older than a parent of a 10-year-old.
Well, I mean, the desert's hard on your skin. All that sun.
Oh, I sound like a prick now because I'm just... Jesus Christ. Oh, I am being a prick. Oh, jeez. Okay. I apologize for saying she was in her 50s. I apologize humbly.
Okay. How old is she in the movie?
She was 42 when this came out.
Oh, that's not so bad. And she had like a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's not that weird. That's not that weird. Do you know what it is? I'm just so used to her being the mum of a kid this age and like, 10 years prior that, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah.
The camera's hard on
That's That's my bad. That's my bad. For the record,
The camera makes me look older, like 10 years older.
Nice try.
Looking forward to high school graduation this week.
Next week, Tara's going to shop in like a backwards baseball cap with a skateboard under her arm, going, "How do you do, fellow kids?"
Hello, children.
You know what? This is not the first time I have completely misjudged someone's age, so I'm clearly just not very good at it, and that's fine, right?
Yeah, I it's harder when you get older to recognize, because you don't want to recognize that someone who's wrinkly is the same age as you, and you don't want to.
Whoa!
And everybody else looks younger than you.
Excuse
Well,
me.
I'm not accusing you of anything here. I'm saying, like,
Okay.
from experience. I'm like, there's no way that person was born the same year as me. And then but then everybody else looks like, who's younger than you looks like a lot younger than you.
Now, I realize the hairline maybe ages me a little bit, but I would not describe myself as someone who looks wrinkly. I'm just going to put that out there, okay?
Well, that's fine. You don't have to describe yourself that way. But maybe next time we film, we could take the Vaseline off the lens.
I love how you're making age jokes now. This is where we've stooped to. All right. It's open season. That's all I'm saying. It's open season. There's actually a lot of age jokes in this about Fred Ward. Kevin Bacon keeps referring to Fred Ward as the old guy, which again was making me kind of chuckle because the last thing I saw Kevin Bacon in, he was like 62 with Amanda Seyfried, his wife.
Oh yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Bacon looks all right for his age.
Oh, he does. He genuinely does, but she is literally half his age. There's no.
Isn't that a plot point of the film? Like, don't they address it at least?
It's a plot. He's kind of jealous that every time she sees someone else because he's worried that she's going to go with some younger guy. And I'm like, I mean, you knew you were older than her when you married her. I mean, it was kind of part of the package. It's not a shock all of a sudden.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on then.
Yeah, we'll move on.
We'll move on. What a tangent that was. To be fair, it's a fairly simple movie. I think the odd tangent's okay in this one, just to beef up the content a bit. So, yes. I mean, what else is there to say spoiler free other than fun effects? They use the rules and the mechanics. The characters actually use intelligence and rules and formulate plans that make sense based on things that we should be able to figure out as the audience. So, and that's basically all I want in a movie. I want likable characters, and I want there to be rules that are followed and used to their advantage. That's all I want in a movie like this.
Yeah, it's tons of fun. Like, it's a creature feature done right.
Yeah. I mean, my only thing here, this is not a critique of the movie, right? I made that clear. I want to make this very specific as to how I'm phrasing this. This movie could do with a remaster. It's because the movie looks quite bad, and it's not that the filmed movie it looks bad. It's that for some reason they never actually did a proper HD remaster of it. All they did was took an old print and turned up the sharpness, so it looks quite rough compared to other stuff on modern TVs. And it's not because it's an older movie. Movies from this era look fantastic. Movies that are much older than this look fantastic. It's just for some reason Universal kind of cheaped out when it came to putting this on Blu-ray or transferring it to HD for stuff, and it looks a bit rough.
I mean, if Transfers 2 and 3 can get an HD, then this one should be able to also.
Are they on Blu-ray? Is there a Transfers? Oh, Transfers. I thought it's the Tremors 2 and 3. Yeah, Transfers 2 and 3 does. Yes, I have those.
Transfers 2 and 3.
I confused. I thought you meant Tremors. I'm like, the Tremors 2 and 3 have Blu-rays? I mean, they might.
Robo War has a Blu-ray.
Oh, Robo War deserves a Blu-ray though. Rotor
for
2.
For all those action scenes, yeah, definitely. For all 6 of the shooting up the forest scenes.
Well, that is the weird thing actually, is that sometimes because these boutique labels that do these cult movies put so much love and care into these weird little gems, or even like just so bad they're good movies, it sometimes leads to things like a Robo War having a really nice print on a Blu-ray versus a Universal movie like this one, where Universal, because they're a big company, like we don't really shit out, doesn't matter.
They're going to stick to the big ones.
Yeah.
But Tremors is such a well loved film. You think that it would have fun because it's one of those movies that just played on like TBS or TNT or something like every I don't know holiday. So every whenever kids were home and stuff, it's just an easy movie to watch. I am kind of conflicted on whether or not I want a gorier movie because I do like that this movie is. I know this is a totally different point that I'm on, but I'm going to finish here.
That's fine.
That I do appreciate like a family friendly horror movie. Yeah, because there's not a whole lot of them, and this one I think works. Because there's no real like human gore. It's all monster gore.
In fact, there's kind of a running joke in the movie where Fred Ward will like swear and then say "pardon my French" because he's in front of the lady. The payoff to the running jokes, neither here nor there. The one that made me laugh in that running joke is about halfway through in front of her. He swears, because he's like agitated about the monsters, and he says "pardon my French." But what made me laugh is that immediately after saying "pardon my French," he swears again, and that made me chuckle a little
That's
bit.
the only thing though. Like it's a very family friendly monster movie, but there's still Fred Ward is still like cursing throughout the film.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really make it like that family appropriate.
It's a thing
and I sort of wish that they either like went for the Fred Ward version of the movie and added a little bit more gore, or took that kind of stuff out just so you can make it an overall family film.
I don't think there's only one F-bomb I can think of, is there not? Or is there a lot of F-bombs?
Yeah, it's my favorite too.
Yeah,
I
but
love that F-bomb.
Most of the cursing is just bastards and shits. I think it is very PG-13 friendly. This. The one F-bomb rule. I think. Because honestly, I think F-bombs is something that really should be okay in a PG-13 because I think it's the sort of thing where I think. I mean, I had pretty loose rules for when I was watching stuff growing up.
If your dad can say it in the house, then you should be able to say it in the movie.
Yeah, I think swearing's maybe treated a bit too harshly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should see a PG-13 and have someone walking around dropping C-bombs left and right, but I think just normal
I think the
levels of
context
swearing
of the swearing it matters. Like you're not calling anybody anything horrendous out of the intention. If The Conjuring can be rated R just because it's super scary, and that's the only reason, then there's no like cursing. I remember in The Conjuring, like it's the only reason it's rated R is because they're like it's too scary for kids to see, so we have to put this rating on here, which is I think I don't know, like not the way you should rate a movie.
The Conjuring way?
Yeah.
You think we should just throw the kids into it and the strongest will survive? Is that your idea?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not necessarily against
Would you have wanted to see The Conjuring as a kid if it came out like when you were a child?
I mean, I was watching horror movies from like the age of 9, so I mean,
hell yeah, me too. So like if there's no real violence or like
I mean,
any violence against humans and stuff, or if it's not sexually explicit, like why not?
I mean, basically the rules for me growing up was that pretty much from as long as I can remember, I was allowed to watch action movies that were otherwise rated R because of violence and swearing, and then the only real hard lines would have been probably anything that was clearly like erotic or something that was like that. By the time I was like 14 though, and like just ordering DVDs for myself off the internet, like it was basically open season. I remember. Yeah. I remember ordering I Spit in Your Grave. Well, it wasn't just that one. It's I ordered a horror box set, and it was like.
Isn't that the rape revenge one?
It is, yes. It was a horror box set of movies that were banned in the 80s, but were not banned anymore. And it was like a box of the band, and it was like 8 movies. And I remember my mother noticing I Spit in Your Grave, and she knew it. And I was surprised, but she knew what it was. And the reason why she knew what it was because she remembered her parents watching it when she was a kid. Oh. But she knew what it was, and there was no issues raised about me watching it. She was just like oh, I recognize that, and she had to comment on it. So clearly, once I was about 14, give or take, by that point it was kind of open season. I was just trusted that I was mature enough to handle.
I think it was for me as well around that
age,
because I mean there were some things that my parents said no, even though like I definitely watched rated R movies with them all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes sex stuff would come up and we just wouldn't look at each other for however long that the scene lasted, and no one would acknowledge it.
honestly,
But-
anything that comes out of mainstream Hollywood at the time was pretty much fair game. And all the
Yeah.
stuff that I've seen, like as an adult, that I'd say is actually far too harsh to watch at the ages that I was watching all these other things. It's all this sort of stuff that I would have had to have really looked for things. Like I would never have found them because either they're foreign movies or they're stuff that's like really niche because they're old or boutique label stuff or.
There are some things that they said no to, like I wasn't allowed to see Pulp Fiction because there's a rape scene in it, and I wasn't allowed to see
Yeah.
actually some war movies they'd said no to. I wasn't allowed to see Schindler's List, and I wasn't allowed to watch Saving Private Ryan.
That's so weird because we watched Schindler's List in school.
Yeah, but I think when it was like fresh and like super emotional for people, they're like, this is too much for a child. No.
Yeah, because the first time I saw that, in fact, the only time I saw that was in school, probably around the age
Did
of
you have to
15.
like get your parents to sign a waiver?
No, the teacher just showed it.
Okay.
In fact, I remember thinking that, I mean, obviously the context is very unerotic, but I remember thinking how weird it felt watching a movie that had nudity in school. Because, like, you know, obviously watching movies in school is a fairly common thing, you know, especially depending on the class. History would often put on,
Yeah,
like,
history
war
and
movies
literature,
and stuff.
for sure.
But I remember that we got to some of the shower stuff and just, like, sort of, like, having a weird moment, like, wait, we're watching a movie with nudity in it in a classroom. This is odd.
Zero eroticism.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously there's nothing like there like that because of the context of the moment, but I just remember it being weird that there was something like this there. It's just in the same way that I remember, like, because whenever we did like a play in English, we'd like all be reading out parts, and I remember there was like some swearing in one of the parts, and like no, like she
Nobody
said,
wanted to say it.
and she's like, "Does anyone want to say this part? You're allowed because it's in the play," and everyone was like. This feels weird. I mean, I swear all the time normally, but the thought of like swearing in front of the teacher like this is really odd.
It's funny.
But yeah, so you know, there you go.
Tangent number 2 done.
Tangent number 2 done. All right, we're going to spoilers then for Tremors. Hey, but it's a movie from the 90s, especially a movie like this that we probably saw growing up. I think at least in these like nostalgia tangents a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think inherently, I think that's okay. So yes, full spoilers after I give you thanks of our patrons, and that was a really weird sentence that I did not phrase correctly at all.
No take 2.
So thank you to our patron producers for the month of Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Bordenow, Al Tresman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. Thank you to you all. They are all Patreon producers, which means they are $20 or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But Tara will tell you about what you can get for much less than that.
No take 2s.
No take twos. I don't know what, I'm off my game tonight. Everything I normally say is just out the window, apparently.
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. Patreon.com/MileFuzzTV, which you've already heard a couple times. So, and if you donate...
Bears repeating. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I agree. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of the Ace, including, let's see, what do we have on there? The Transfer Saga, which we've brought up. There's a bunch of David Carradine and Garrett Graham movies. There's a Red Brown special, Robo War, which we've brought up. Rotor, which we've brought up also. Excellent watches, excellent reviews. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 1 day early. And some other shows we do 1 week early.
Yeah.
So head on over and check it out. See if it's worth your time. Thank you.
And I'll also add on here that for the next several months, because Tim's on paternity leave, because normally there's a bonus episode of Streams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast, that you also get the dollar tier. That's actually replaced for a few months with me and Tara doing action movies just like this. So if you like me and Tara talking about movies, there's actually a second bonus thing you're going to get for a while. So go and have a look. So there you go.
Just for a little while.
Yeah.
So if you don't like us talking about action movies, or if action movies aren't your thing, don't worry.
I mean, you could just avoid it if you really didn't like the idea of it, I suppose. Although the first one is Deja Vu, which is very science fiction anyway, so, you know, it's
The
fine.
first one was a vote on Tony Scott and Denzel Washington films, and the science fiction movie won. Whatever.
Yep. So it's just an extra bonus Ace episode. So you can find that. I mean, that'll be up by the time this goes out. So go have a look. All right, so Tremors, full spoilers for Tremors if people care about it. But You know, I mean, ultimately, the opening chunk of the movie is introducing the characters. I'm still not really entirely sure what the two leads do for a living. They seem to just go around.
They seem to, yeah, they're like handymen. They just pick up whatever job you need.
They've got a pickup truck, so they just go around and use it for various, like, it may be like picking up the garbage, it might be fixing something, and it might be like a variety of
cleaning out septic tanks.
Yeah. It seems like they maybe get the stock for the little store that's in town as well, and deliver that. I don't know, like it's a variety of things. It's very odd.
They are workers. They will work if you pay them.
But they're determined to leave. But it's just as they're about to leave town that they start to notice these things. And there's all these teases because they find this guy that they know that's like basically died of dehydration because he stayed up like a telephone pole for a few days. And it's like, why would be up a telephone pole? And it's a gun. And it's a good tease as well because it's like it's exactly what they end up having to do later. I mean, not a telephone pole, but they end up having to stay off the ground later. It's a nice tease for what's to come. As is there's like the doctor and his wife, who are, I don't know, thinking about a second honeymoon or something. I don't know. There was some sort of weird middle-aged romanticism going on. But
they were just building a house.
Were they building a house? Is that what they're doing? I guess that puts you in a romantic mood, building a house.
Yeah. They're living in a camper and they're building a house together.
But their car gets sucked into the dirt. I actually especially like, because up until this point you don't really see much of any of the monsters, right? They're saving it for when our two leads get to see them properly. But I did like the visual of, like, when it goes to a wide shot of just the valley, you can see the beams of the headlights like still sticking in the air, and then they go out because they've obviously been sucked all the way in. Oh, that was a nice touch. It was.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I like that they added the music would stay on, so that they can when Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward get there the next day, they can still hear the music playing from under the ground from the dirt.
Yeah, that car battery put in some time, lasting that long. But
I know it never does in like sitcoms.
Yeah, I mean, well, the engine was technically running, so maybe it wouldn't have died yet. Because obviously it doesn't. It lasts a lot longer, or it drains a lot quicker if you don't have the engine running. Yeah,
because the headlights were still on, but the I think that the music wasn't coming from the car. I think it's like a portable radio she had.
Ah, okay. Well, in that case, those batteries are putting some serious. The batteries are doing really well in this car. All right, between the car battery and the.
Well, if you had a portable radio back then, you knew it took like 18 C-size batteries.
We've come a long way, haven't we? Come a long way. Imagine this phone. I mean, there's obviously a big walkie-talkie kind of like part of the movie where they've got like a radio, but just imagine this movie now with cell phones. Now, admittedly, it's the sort of shitty little town I'd buy that would have no reception because there's like nothing there. But
yeah,
you know, it's worth thinking about how many movies from before the 2000s are completely ruined if you add in cell phones.
Yeah, that's true.
Die Hard's another big one. So much of that movie is about him trying to call for help for the first half of it. And it's like, no, he'd have his iPhone on him.
Just think of all the things we don't have to worry about anymore because we have cell phones. That's what these movies remind you of. Yeah.
But then I like these types of movies so much that I'm like, well, if I'm ever going to make one, I'm going to set it in like the 80s just because I don't want them to be. I don't want to have to do the whole, the battery in the cell phones died. All five of us have cell phones though. Oh, they're all dead. They're all gone. Just.
Or that no one will believe us anyway.
No.
Are you sure?
Like, me and Tim do a lot of horror movies, okay? And I'll just... I've seen them all. I've seen all the excuses for why the cell phones aren't working anymore. It's a consistent problem in modern horror cinema. I mean, hell, even when I wrote a script in high school for a horror movie set in high school, which I never got around to making, even I set it in the mid-90s just so that I didn't have to deal with the fact that everyone had mobile phones. It wasn't smartphones yet, but most people had mobile phones, so it was just like I had to write around that.
Into mobile phones, and really into the band TLC.
Yeah.
Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. It was the first 90s thing I could think of.
I do know that song. I do know that song actually. Actually, the reason why I think I know that song is because in Scream Queens there's a flashback to a party in the early 90s, and I think that's the song they played in the flashback of the party.
Yeah. It's a great 90s song.
Oh, that's quite funny.
Crazy, Sexy, Cool. That was the first album I ever bought.
I think
All right,
that's
no more nostalgia.
yeah, I think that's a little bit early for me to remember. But when Iron Man 3 came out and they showed it was 1999 by playing Blue, Abadi Abadai, that one hot a chord. That I remembered from the time. Dear. Anyway, so the characters run to Tremors. How do we get? I mean, all the fun stuff starts once the action.
I think it's a really cool setup. You don't really see anything yet, and I also like the little Evil Dead cam that we get of the the Tremors, where we see on the surface we were watching the people walk around and something is following them, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah, because obviously they have like a part of a tentacle in the bottom of the truck that's obviously like come ripped off, and they sort of joke around about it. But it's when they try to leave, and there's like they find the dead bodies of the construction workers, because there's been like a rock slide has happened because of whatever the Tremors have done. And it does make
road.
And it does make sense. Yeah, there's one road leading out of town, and that's now blocked. But it does make sense, I suppose, when you think about it, that if there was construction workers with a jackhammer, if they're attracted to vibrations and noise, then the jackhammer's probably the loudest and most vibratorial thing. That's not a word. In the vicinity. So it makes sense that they'd be attracted to that.
Yeah.
It's very logical. And they get a glimpse of it, but I think the real fun is when they're looking around for help, and they end up with the college girl. I mean, it's weird to call her a girl because she's more like a post-grad who's like actually studying things, like actually doing research. She's not like
she's like a geologist at this point.
It's not a geologist because she corrects them because they argue.
Seismologist.
Yeah, because they argue because one of them says, "Oh, she's a geographer." Yeah. I want to say that he maybe said it wrong as well, just to add to the stupidity of Kevin Bacon. But then the other guy's like, "Nah, geologist." And she's like, "No, actually, I'm a seismologist." They're just like, "Okay, all right." Which becomes a running thing where they two will bicker over something, and then she'll be like, because that's one of the big things that happens is that when they end up having to like hide on a rock. So this is the first example of them having to go up on something, and the graboids can travel through dirt, which is what most of this area is because it's desert. But big rocks, they can.
Yeah, like bedrock, they can't go through.
Yeah.
It's a wall for them.
And they're bickering about what to do back and forth, and of course she has a solution, which is the pole vault. Because I mean, admittedly, there's a little bit of luck involved with this, that there's enough rocks, close enough to each other that they can get over to her truck. But so
she's a geologist. She probably would park next to the rocks, especially if you're in a desert and the rocks are going to offer you some shade. I don't know. It's all right. I think it makes sense.
Oh, that part makes sense. But I mean, they're quite far away, and there just happens to be a rock at enough of the intervals they need so they can pole vault the whole way, is what I mean.
But I mean, it works with the rest of the, because I looked up where this place was, where it was filmed.
Oh, okay.
And stuff. And if you look at all the pictures, there's rocks like that all over. Like it's just desert with those, I don't know, this type of cactus plants that they have up there. And then it has these like just rolling looking rocks everywhere sticking out of the ground, and then beautiful mountains in the background. It's a really cool place.
Oh, neat. Okay, fair enough. It's accurate
and it's in, like, you see those rocks also in like the town area too. So I mean, I think so anyway.
You see some. Obviously once they get back to town though, because they get back to her truck, because their truck was eaten, right? That's just first and foremost.
Yeah.
But they get back to town, and they end up like everyone else is there, and they're like, okay, we have to stay off the ground. They're coming. They're attracted to noise, and we get the really fun stuff where it's not that long before the monsters find their way into the building, because it's just wooden floorboards. They're able to like go through that, and it ends up being them having to climb up and whatnot. But there's a lot
on the roof.
But yeah, they're all kind of separate. Like the teenager's on the top of this little hut because he was kind of separate. So I guess the little toilet area.
Yeah.
And then the woman ends up, because the whole pants ripping thing happens, but then she ends up on top of the water tower, and some of them are up on the roof of the store. Some of them are there, and they're kind of sprinkled out. The gun nuts still have left. They're separate because they come back into it later. But it really becomes this thing. Okay, right. Well, we've solved this. We're up on the roofs now. What do we do now? And the gun nut couple are at their place. They come on the radio and they start asking questions and they're communicating. But the monsters are smart. They're starting to like problem solve and like, how can we get around this? How can we get up to them? And they start basically, essentially, ripping the foundation of the building away, so the building starts to like collapse.
Yeah, these grabbers are very much like, not like Jaws, but like Jaws 3 Jaws.
Well, actually,
they have like a vengeance thing.
There was one moment that later on where the really smart ones put a trap in the road to like stop them, and when they crash and Kevin Bacon says he laid a trap, all I could hear in my head was Bill Paxton going, "Laid a trap? They're animals, man. How could they leave a trap?" Like I could just hear that line from Aliens, but just swap lights or cut the power for lay a trap. Yeah. That's all I could hear in my head. I was like, not that I think it's ripping off Aliens, but I mean, if you're going to take something, take from the best.
Sure.
Yeah. But yes, but there's a lot of fun stuff here where they realize that one of them's left because one of them's went over to where the gun nuts are, because the gun nuts turned on like some big machine that's like I don't even know what it was, but
it's like a generator. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like vibrating. It's like, but it's not a dryer. But
it's something else. It looks like it's like grinding down bullets.
It's like it's like a mixer or something like that, because it's basically it's just rocking and it's making a lot of noise, and it's clearly so it attracts one of the graboids. So they're left with one, and they realize, and this is what I love about movies like this, where they go like, okay, but if we make some noise over there, so someone else can do something there
louder,
we can sort of like direct it around and try and keep each other safe and do this and that, and they try to think of a plan, and of course, because of the noise at the other place, because the couple were going to come in and save them in their big truck, and they were going to drive to the mountains where it's all rock, so they'd be safe. But of course, they're making such a racket that they end up having a graboid come through the wall of their bunker.
Yeah, and this is where the shootout happens.
This is where my only critique of this, honestly, is that I felt like they went to the stupid guns before they ran out of because they waste all their ammo and whatever guns they've got, and then they switch to another rifle. I felt like she switched to a flare gun, which is clearly not going to be that useful when there's still like maybe like
she shot it inside the mouth though. That's pretty cool.
That's true, but there was like a dozen like still regular machine guns behind her and shotguns that they could have still been using. But he uses the elephant gun to kill it because he shoots them in the mouth.
I probably would have gone for the flare gun just because, if anything, it's going to make it. If you can get it inside the mouth, it's going to be distracting because it goes off for a while.
That's true. But they kill it. They actually kill one of them with firearms. And unfortunately, though, they can't shoot through the ground to it. Like, it can only be through the mouth. So all of their attempts to shoot the other one from the roof does nothing.
Yeah.
Does nothing.
I like that. Like, yeah, the ground probably would stop a bullet.
Yeah. Or even just the idea that the hide is also thick enough to stop a bullet. It's like you have to it's like a video game boss. You have to get the weak spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Because if I would glossed over because the two leads kill one kind of almost by accident by making it run into a wall. Because it's like a little dam area.
It goes into the dam.
Yeah.
Or it's not a dam. I think it's like a river.
Yeah.
But the way the river's looking in Southern California, which is concrete, and then a tiny little stream going down the middle.
But yeah, so it hits the wall and like kills itself, and because that's when the lady comes into it and starts they start analyzing it, and they're all excited because it's like this 20-foot long monster. They're going to make money off.
I mean,
of it.
they sold just a tentacle for like $15. Imagine how much they can get for the whole thing.
because this is where she's like, oh, I think there's 3 more of these, because she's like, because all these little tremors she's been seeing, this correlates to 3 more of these things been around. Again, why is there 4 specifically?
I mean, there's gonna be more because we have 6 sequels.
That's very true. I wonder. I feel like the movie was about to imply something and then never get around to actually finishing this thought. Because one of the things she speculates, because they have a little conversation when they're stuck in the rock about, what are these things? Where did they come from? And Ward's like, they're probably aliens, and Kevin Bacon's like, I bet they're created there to kill the Russians.
Radiation or something. Yeah.
And she actually gives maybe the more grounded like possibility, which is that they're actually just ancient creatures that we've just never seen before, which is fine, and I get that when we're in like a water movie and we're doing like deep sea dive, and it's we're going to the depths that we've never went to before, so here's something new that we never discovered. I thought it was going to maybe say something environmental, like, oh, these things are now here because we've been drilling too much for oil or something, or I don't know. I thought
the
they were
fracking.
Yeah,
the fracking has brought out the tremors.
I thought they were going to give me a reason, and not like a deep political reason, just like something to say, oh, this is why.
I hope one of the sequels does bring up fracking.
It would be an interesting way to go.
Because fracking has caused like earthquakes in areas where there wouldn't be because it's not on a fault line. So, fracking causing tremors. But the tremors are the grabbers. Hell yeah. Let's get that sequel made.
I'm Star Trekking a tremor here. Okay. I'll shake his in post.
Shake the whole screen.
Yes.
Nice.
So yes, it's very so they have this idea, they have this great plan to use, because they're like, oh well, we need a helicopter or maybe like a tank, and then they realize, oh wait, we've got this big bulldozer which is like huge and metal and weighs like 30 tons, like it can't do anything with that. But I do love that once they do actually get to use it, they establish that if they stay still it will be able to sink it, because they can just eat away at the ground, but if they keep moving it's okay. I like that part of it. I like that every time it like introduces a rule and then like maybe like a way to combat them, like it adds more onto it without it feel like it's bullshitting by trying to like take something away. So no, that makes sense. It actually, each thing kind of escalates in a way that makes sense.
And they can't like reach very far either. Like whether they're coming through the wall or going through the like top of the ground, they only like stick their head out.
Yes.
Like and that's consistent throughout the whole thing.
Absolutely. So this is where Kevin Bacon has to run, although there's some bickering between him and Ward about who gets to actually run. Because one of the running things throughout the movie is they always play rock, paper, scissors to make decisions.
Yeah, Rochambeau.
Yeah. Sure.
That's what it's called.
Sure. Rock, paper, scissors.
I think it's called Rochambeau.
You're probably right. I know it by the simplistic term. I'm not as educated clearly as Tara here.
I think we have the same level of education.
Yes, we both have bachelor degrees, but that's neither here nor there. Neither of them in seismology, or for that matter, ancient hand gesture games, or whatever that falls under.
I guess it has to be as old as paper and scissors. Well, paper's probably older. I don't know if paper's older than scissors.
Paper. Scissors is we know them.
Papyrus.
I think papyrus is definitely older than scissors, but I mean a blade to cut like wood perhaps might be older than paper. You
don't think like a double blade thing would have been?
Yeah, that's.
I guess they would.
Like
they would invent it to cut papyrus.
But if you think about like the idea of that being like a hinge, I don't think they had hinges or like that till later. That feels like an advanced thing.
I don't know. I don't know how to research this, so I won't. Plus, I don't do research. I'm out of school. I already have my degree.
Yes, as do I. And I did very little research when I was there, so I'm good. So yeah, they have this thing where they turn on a tractor because it's just like, oh well, how do we make noise with it being safe? And it's like, oh, we'll just let this tractor run on its own. But it tips over when Kevin Bacon's halfway, and it's actually the scientist lady who's like, hey, like they use vibration, so it's actually very Jurassic Park in a lot of ways. That's just kind of funny that happens to star one of the kids, but like just stay still, because if you stay still and make no noise, there's no vibrations, and if there's no vibrations, then it can't find you. And so we have this tense scene where Bacon's kind of standing there, and the tentacles are kind of looking for him, but not really being able to find him, and they have to make enough noise to like lure it back over to the buildings. But it's a really fun sequence. I think honestly I think there's good introductions to the characters in the first half, but I think it's once they're in the town and they're going up to the roofs, I think that's the part of the movie where it really clicks into place, where the rest of it from that point on is like just good stuff. It's just good monster movie stuff. And that's where I really fall in love with it. But yeah, so they end up picking up the gun nuts who have been making pipe bombs. They've got a big sack of pipe bombs at the ready, which I guess you needed a movie like this, but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, you already know where it's going with the pipe bombs, but I like that it's not just we have to get the worms to eat the pipe bombs. Instead, it's like we use the pipe bombs because they're attracted to noise, but too much noise will make them flee because it hurts them.
Yeah,
which is not something I was expecting with the bombs.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I also liked it when they do try to use the pipe bombs. It's after the truck flips, and because of the trap, and they're hiding on a rock, and it's like, hey, why don't we like fish it with bait, or bait it with like fishing? So they actually have the pipe bomb on a line, and Fred Ward gets to do his lassoing trick. But of course, once they've lit the fuse, they've only got like 15 seconds till it blows up. So it's a really narrow window. So they're able to kill one, which is the third one that's killed. So there's one left after this, but that's how they actually kill one. And there's like, splat, yellow chunks of
looks like pumpkin to me.
Yeah, tremor meat all over the thing. And before someone correct, we know that they're not called tremors. Tremors are obviously the vibrations, as what tremor is. But
they're sort of called tremors in like the zeitgeist of pop culture.
I think Foxy's feeling some tremors.
Yeah, she's good. She got it, I think. You got it, girl?
Good doggo. Good doggo.
Yeah, she's all right.
So, so they try to do it a second time, but this last one's too smart. This last one's playing possum. But this last one, when they try to do the trick with the line and the bomb, the damn thing throws it back. And they'll have to run for cover.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. Kevin Bacon,
and it blows up all the other bombs.
It does,
with the exception
yes.
of one that Bacon has.
Yes. And Bacon ends up out there on his own. The other two leads end up going after him. And he essentially tricks it by running to what we don't realize is a cliff face. We don't really... the camera does a good job of not showing us that this is the edge of a cliff. But he leads it out there, dives out the way, and it goes flying out of the cliffside into whatever's below. Yeah, just falls to its death. And
this old satisfying splat at the end.
Happily ever after. Pretty much. There's a lot of and obviously there's a lot of bickering with the characters when they're stuck in the rock for a while. There is some problem solving. There is like, oh, what can we do, kind of thing. But it's because the mustache guy does actually get really mad at Kevin Bacon at one point. But later on, when Kevin Bacon's kind of like on the outskirts because he had to dive when the bombs were going off, he is the one that jumps on the ground and starts making noise when just yelling's not enough. So it's like there is kind of a camaraderie. There is kind of like a spirit between them all.
Yeah, I mean he's upset because he left his bunker, which had food and stuff, and now they're trapped anyway. So he would have rather have been trapped at his home. But I think everybody knows that you probably would be dead by now if you were still there. Yeah, the building would have been sunk, but long before. The guy's not being rational, and I think he knows it. Yeah, he's been mad. I like the camaraderie. I will say some of the characters do feel a bit one note in the sense that, like Dee Wallace and her daughter's there for that moment. When they're all starting to go inside and not make noise, and the daughter's pogoing, right, and Kevin Bacon has headphones
to
on.
Yeah, and has to run and save her, and stop the pogoing, because obviously the pogoing, a lot of vibrations from that. And I feel like after that point, like her and her mum are basically just in the background for the rest of the movie and are never a factor in anything. They're just kind of there in the background at every joke. And I suppose it adds to the numbers of how many people they're saving by doing everything else, but they never actually factor into anything ever again. They're just kind of there in the background. No, they all sort of get like one scene. Yeah. Like them and the teenager. There are some people who don't make it. Like the shop owner dies. Yeah, the guy in the trailer. There's a guy in the trailer gets knocked over. Who thinks he's safe by just sitting on a tire, which is like, inches off the ground. Yeah, he gets eaten through the tire. Yeah. Sort of a blob moment. Yeah. But all the characters we get to know enough survive, and they're kind of obviously always going to survive, and that's okay. It's the kind of fun, light-hearted movie that's okay. But it would have been nice if maybe everyone got something in the ending. Like if everyone got to contribute to like defeating the last one, or saving the main trio so they could beat the last one, because it was always going to be the main trio, right? It was always going to be all three of them together, and of course it was. So it's a very crowd pleasing movie, and it's got the right mix of of mechanics, the right mix of likable characters, the effects of, like, the buildings coming down, and the physical effects of the tentacles and all that look quite good. The only time there's anything else, I would say, is when it comes through the wall in the bunker with the gun nut's house. There's a couple of moments where they're shooting at it, and you can sort of see it's like a rear screen projection as they're shooting at it, because obviously they're standing in front of it. Yeah, I noticed too. But no, it's got charm, and it's a very likable film. It's hard.
As far as B movies go, I mean, they don't get much better than this.
Yeah,
there's like a good example of what a good B movie can look like.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there's probably ones that I prefer. I'd have to think about it, but
yeah, but we also really like bad B movies.
Oh, we do. I mean, yes, we are guilty of that. I mean, that's I mean, I suppose in some ways, like, I like to argue that in a lot of ways, something like Jaws is technically a B movie. It's just treated with such craft that it becomes an A movie.
Well, it's a blockbuster also.
Yeah. I mean, is this much less of a blockbuster than Jaws, if you really think about it?
I imagine it is.
I mean, it's better directed, and it's Spielberg, and it's, you know, it's got even better actors, and even better, I mean, not effects per se, because there's a reason why they were hiding the shark, but but it's better in every other way. But I mean, at its heart, I mean, the story is still kind of a B movie. It's still them fighting a shark.
Yeah, still a monster movie.
Same with Alien. Again, it's like, you know, the premise is a B movie, but you know, you give it to a visionary director, you treat it with class, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like a B movie anymore. Whereas this is happy just being a B movie.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and as that, it is very good. It's very enjoyable, and this is probably the least exciting review in a lot of ways, because we have nothing really bad to say, and it's not like it's a perfect film by any means, but for what it is, it succeeds.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's Tremors. What are you going to rate it?
Well, okay. I think it's a great movie, and I think for all the ingredients that is put into the film, everything just works really well. I think the strongest part of the movie is the two leads, but it's also a fun premise. I mean, I've watched this movie a lot over the years, and I still enjoyed watching it today, even though I know like every line in the movie. And it's it's probably an 8. Like, I think it's a great version, or a great example of what a B movie can be. All you can be movie.
Honestly, I think in hindsight, I'd rated this like a 7. I still kind of feel that way, but talking about it and like thinking about it as I was watching it, I don't know why I'm not going a little bit higher, because ultimately, for what it is, there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
There really isn't. Outside of like some of the minor nitpicks I've had, where there's improvements that could be made, but it does everything it's doing so well. So
yeah,
I'm going to say 7.5. We split it. Say 7.5.
Okay.
I say 7.5, but very good, very good. Really fun time. It's an easy watch.
And I love Kevin Bacon in this movie.
Kevin Bacon.
Every time he swears, it's so good. Yes, it's my favorite FU in a movie.
Yes, he yells FU at the graboid who crashes into the river wall.
He's just so intense about it.
He's also got really big hair. There's a moment where, to get the radio that they need to use to call the gun nut couple, where they hang him upside down to like get it from the window, from the roof, and his hair when he's upside down is just so big and like vivacious.
It's great. It looks very light, feather light.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried that some of it may not age well at the start, actually, because see when he's like because they're talking about, oh, there's a woman out there, let's go say hi, and they have this like conversation for like 30 seconds about how, because I mean, he's not quite as crude as this, but he basically says, oh, I hope she's got a tight ass and big boobs, and like he describes. He's
describing a supermodel.
Yeah, and then when he sees her, there's this slick. He's like, oh.
Not my dream girl.
Yeah, he's like, his face just drops, and the music kind of is like, oh god, is this going to be like really weirdly sexist? And it actually wasn't after like after that
No.
point. It has fun with it. It's slightly amusing, and it's
They make fun of Kevin Bacon for his
Yeah.
stupid standards instead of
yeah, no,
like,
that's true. Like as soon as Fred Ward starts making fun of him for being a prick about it,
yeah, they're not making fun of
Yeah.
the woman for not being a supermodel
yes,
or as attractive as a supermodel. It's making fun of him,
yes,
which is a good start.
absolutely. And like you say, she is the smart one who knows most of the things and figures out a lot of the plans. But the men are all kind of these, delightful idiots in a lot of ways. Yeah, okay, there you go. If you made it this far in the review, put the word seismic into the comments.
Nice.
Seismic, yeah. Tara's going to pose for the thumbnail, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. Not
Get
bad.
it?
I get it. I get it.
I'm looking down.
Because there's something there, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that I just started doing yesterday on streams, I'm not going to do it in this because I don't think this movie's going to have hundreds of reviews and they're all going to probably be quite sensible. But for some of the bad movies we do, so this is maybe more of a bonus movie thing, is I'm going to read some of the IMDb user reviews because I did that yesterday for Jack Frost 2 and it was kind of a hoot. So
Okay.
but I did it on Tremors though, because I mean, yeah, they're all just saying it's all between a 7 and a 10 out of 10, and people saying, "Oh yeah, great monster movie! Oh, great callback to the 50s! Great fun ride! This monster movie has everything." So there you go. I will simply quote the title of the review from August 2002 from Wild Velvet, who's titled it simply "So Good."
That's the one you picked, huh?
That's the
okay.
one I picked, yes. Because I can make that sound funny. I can't make some of these other ones sound funny. Alright, so there we go. There's Tremors. Coming next time, we are finally getting back to a franchise that we've been working through. Been a little bit of a gap since the last one, so hopefully you're all waiting with bated breath for Conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
I know, I've been waiting.
Which is the 4th film in the franchise, so we're doing that next week. And I'll just tell you
We'll be
now...
halfway through.
Yeah, and the plans after that are also kind of exciting because the next 2 episodes after that are going to be a 2-part countdown special. Episodes 97 and 98 are going to be our top 50 sci-fi movies of all time. Each of us doing our own list. Probably not for the last time. I'm sure we'll revisit it again once we've seen another 100 or so movies just to...
Yeah, I think this is a list that, given
Yeah.
what we do, we'll be able to update. Hopefully, if there are good movies out there we watch.
I suspect so, yeah. So that's going to be kind of your Christmas and New Year's episodes, give or take. At least according to my schedule here, those should be coming out on the 26th of December and the 2nd of January, publicly. Maybe a day earlier. Maybe I'll try and wing it so they come out on Christmas and New Year's. Don't know if people like that. Or maybe they'll do really badly because everyone's busy on those days. Or maybe not this year. Actually, 2020, maybe the people aren't that busy on those days. Everyone's just sitting at home like every other day. But yeah, that's the plan for the next couple of weeks. So hopefully that sounds good. And you're looking forward to it. And like I say, check Patreon if you're a patron of any tier. $1 or up, you'll have a review of Deja Vu already up to check out. That will become the action movie bonus episode slot. But the first one's actually sci-fi, so check out that. Just last week, our actual bonus movie in November went up, which was Robot Jocks, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last one we did. Good. Excellent.
Sticking with the big robot theme.
Yeah. And there we go. So that is the show. That has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I'll just reiterate once again, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, very important, as is the like button and subscribing and rating the podcast on iTunes and all that stuff. All those things help spread the show around and find us more audience members. So as the simplest and easy way to help us out is to hit that like button. So smash it. Smash that like button.
We're almost at 10K.
Grab it. We are almost at 10K on YouTube. You're right.
That's
We
pretty
are.
exciting.
Very close. We'll probably be hitting that just early January, I imagine, give or take. So yeah. Tara, would you like to promote any other bit of Male Fuzz TV content?
If you're a fan of long form storytelling epic sci-fi, please check out our reviews of Babylon 5. We've only just begun. We've only just begun.
I'm almost a little bit disappointed you haven't twisted that around into we've been reviewing another show. The year is 2020 and the name of the show is Babylon 5.
That's your thing.
That's true. Plus,
that's
I
your
mean,
thing.
yeah, if you're trying to sell new people on it, they won't get why you're saying it in such a weird way because they've not seen the show yet. But
Yeah. So if you've ever been Babylon 5 curious, we're just starting the show too. So watch it along with us. We've been enjoying it.
yes, Babylon 5 is definitely a phase you go through in college where you're experimenting.
I like saying B5 curious.
Okay, there you go. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you once again. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates and all sorts. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.
F